Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I'm going to show you how I paint a Revenant Draconith for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. This model was sent to me kindly by Games Workshop, and I really wanted to paint it earlier in the year, but I had some trouble finding time for it. As you've probably noticed, there haven't been basically any videos this year so far, and it's not because I haven't wanted to play, but there's just been a lot of stuff going on that has made that more or less not doable for me. But I hope that I am back on track now. So as you can see, I have chosen to paint this model without the rider, so just the dragon on its own, and that's just because I think it's really cool as it is, and also because I want to use it for games of D&D where I play a necromancer, and I'm really hoping that I will at one point get to raise my very own zombie dragon that I can then have as my very lovely, very friendly companion. So I start out, as you can see, with a model that's been primed using a white primer. This is the White Scars primer from Citadel, and I'm also going to paint it in sub-assemblies because, one, it's very easy to do with this model, and you could also do that with the rider, paint him separate if you wanted to, and also just because the wings are really big and a little bit fragile, so I didn't want them to get in the way while I was painting. So the first color you can see me using here is Sigwald Burgundy, which is a contrast paint from Citadel, and I used that as my undercoat for the skin. I want the skin to be blue, but I thought that a nice dark rich purpley pink color would give a really lovely saturated undertone to what I ultimately want to be a sort of desaturated grayish blue skin color, and so just thought those two colors would sort of complement each other really well. Then I use Burnt Moss, a speed paint from the Army Painter, and I use that as the underpaint for both the spikes, like all the bone stuff on the dragon, and I also use that same color as the underpaint for all the gooey stuff, like the intestines and stuff. I could probably have gone with more color variation here, but this is, I mean, it's a gaming piece. It's something I want to use for D&D. It's not a competition piece or anything. So I also wanted to do something that was, well, I'm not going to claim this paint job was quick, but I also didn't want to jump through unnecessary hoops that I didn't really enjoy. So I just thought two different colors for the underpainting, that's gotta be fine. Then I grab a makeup brush. I don't own any other makeup brushes than the ones I have on my hobby desk, but the ones I have there I'm really fond of because they are some of the best brushes that you can get for dry brushing. The white paint I'm using here is matte white from the Army Painter, but you could use any sort of white paint for this. It's not really important when you're just dry brushing. I don't much enjoy dry brushing. Actually, I think I'm perhaps a little bit too impatient with it, or I just don't really have the right technique, because I can see other people get really amazing results and I don't. But for making something like slab chopping, I think this is more than good enough. Then for the first real layer of the skin color, I'm using Kroxigor Scales, again one of the contrast paints. It's one of my favorites. It's sort of a nice saturated turquoise color, and there's just, I don't know, there's just something immensely satisfying about turquoise. I think it's such a beautiful color. And I also really think it works well on top of something like pink or purple, because it gives it gives a lot more depth to the turquoise, I think, and makes it a lot more visually interesting. And it just, yeah, I just think it works really well. As a side note, this type of underpainting also works like, it's sort of like a painting miracle. If you want to paint yellow colors, slap a pink undercoat on it, dry brush with a bit of white, and then a yellow speed paint or contrast paint on top, and you're basically good to go. Then I start working on the wings, and I've decided that I want them to be pink and orange, and so I use Volupus Pink and Gryph-hound Orange for the first layer of paint. If you look closely at the model here, you can probably see that there aren't any real sort of sharp transitions between the ribs of the wings and the membranes of the wings, so possibly the idea is that it's all just made out of the same sort of decaying fleshy stuff. So perhaps it's meant to be painted all the same color as the rest of the dragon's body. But I can't pass up an opportunity to paint something pink and orange, and since I decided that that would be just perhaps a little bit too neon-y for an entire zombie dragon, I'm gonna go with that for the wings. As you can see here, I'm just doing a really quick wet blend to make sure that the transitions between these three colors aren't too sort of sharp and jarring. But I just do it really quickly because this is just the first layer of paint, and I'm going to be painting all sorts of other stuff on top of this. So this is more or less just like a baseline to work from. So if I make mistakes here, it's no big deal. Then for the spikes and horns and bones, I am using Skeleton Horde, and which is of course not very original, but it's a really awesome bone color, so I use it in almost all of my projects. Because the burnt moss I used as an underpainting is just slightly greenish, it also gives the all the bones and stuff a slight sickly greenish tint to them that I think works really well for a zombie dragon. Then for the gooey parts of the model, I am using Blood Angels Red, and I think a nice sort of really red color works well as a contrast to all the blue stuff that is going on the skin. And also, once everything has been highlighted a little bit, it will still stand out from both the orange and the pink that is going on the wings. So my original idea was to have the zombie dragon just be one color blue and then have the spot colors on the wings. But when I looked at it like this, I thought it was slightly boring, and so I decided to add a little bit of green. The color I'm using is Gut Ripper Flesh, which is a lovely sickly green color. I am using it not really as a contrast paint here. I don't have a whole lot of paint on the brush, so I'm more using it to tint the blue color underneath so that it looks more greenish in places. And I actually think this works really well. It gives you some nice subtle transitions between the colors. And the green also has the added benefit, of course, of being a color that contrasts with red, which means that the gooey parts on the model where the flesh is torn apart gets to stand out just a little bit more. With all the base colors done, it's finally time to start highlighting, which is the part of the painting process that I enjoy the most. So I start up with the Croxagore scales, some steel gray from Game Color and some Blaster Blue from Huge Miniatures, and I mix these three colors as the first layer of highlights for the blue skin. So you can see here I have a nice sort of slightly desaturated grayish blue color, and I really want it to be slightly desaturated because otherwise I'll probably just end up with a baby blue zombie dragon, and while I have nothing against baby blue zombie dragons, that's not exactly the look I'm going for here. So I've thinned down the paint quite a bit so that I can paint all of these sort of tiny uneven strokes, as you can see here. And the reason I'm painting like this is, one, because the alternative might be trying to get some really smooth blends for the flesh, which I am both not really great at and also don't enjoy. And also because this makes the flesh look quite uneven and splotchy, which I actually think is quite fitting for a zombie dragon. I also use the same colors as a highlight for the wings. You can see here I am painting horizontal lines going from the ribs of the wings out onto the membranes, and the whole idea with this is to try and tie these colors together to make sure that the wings look like an organic whole. Then for the green parts of the zombie dragon skin, I use the same colors as the base, and then I add in some Gut Ripper Flesh and also some Gamma Green from Huge Miniatures, and again I have to admit a neon color, so that I get a green color that will more or less, I think, match the blue color. I don't want these two colors to be wildly different from each other. I want the transitions between the blue and the green to be relatively smooth without, again, having to spend a whole bunch of time trying to actually achieve real, proper, nice, smooth blending because, as I said, I don't really enjoy that. So I used the exact same technique as I did with the first layer of blue highlights, some quite watered down paint, and then just a bunch of thin strokes in all sorts of directions to make it look splotchy and to tie these two colors together. Then for the second layer of highlights on the blue, I am using again steel gray and blaster blue, but I'm mixing that with glacier blue from Vallejo to get an even colder, lighter color for the highlights. I am using the same technique with some thin down paints for the more splotchy looking colors on the flesh, and then some less thin down paint for the spikes, as you can see here, to make sure that they stand out and pop a little bit more. I decided to add a little bit of shadows to the wings. I thought they looked slightly bland without it. So I took some Achillean green and then just painted in some of the grooves on the wings to make sure that they would stand out a little bit, add a bit of contrast and a little bit of visual interest to the piece, while also making it slightly more readable from a bit of a distance, I think. Then I started working on highlighting the wings, and for that I used a mixture of Screamer Pink and Pulsewave Pink, another one of those neon colors from Huge Miniatures. And it's my experience that if you mix the neon colors with something that is, well, not neon, they tend to look slightly desaturated. Not a lot, of course, because it's still, well, a neon color, but just a slight touch of desaturation somehow. I'm not sure if it's just me. But anyways, I thought that was a really nice fit for the first layer of highlights for the wings, so that when I use the brighter colors, they will have something that they can sort of contrast with. Then for the orange parts of the wings, I used Laser Orange, again a neon color from Huge Miniatures, and I mixed that with the pink colors I had used first, so I get this sort of peachy looking color. It's worth noting that the orange in real life really pops. It's a very strong neon color, but it just doesn't show up well on camera for some reason. Just to keep that in mind a little bit. It's more desaturated here on camera than it is actually in real life. But still, I think this is a nice sort of in-between color that helps tie the orange and the pink parts of the wings together. Then for the second highlight on the pink parts of the wings, I used Pulsewave Pink on its own, because I thought that it was now time to start with some of the colors that would actually really truly pop here on the wings. You'll notice that while I am adding these highlights, I just draw or paint a bunch of small horizontal lines. Again, you could make the wings look much more even and smooth if you wanted to go that route, but I like the more sort of stylistic look of this, and again, this is just a style of painting and a technique that I enjoy much more than smooth blending. For the orange parts of the wings, I again used the Laser Orange, and I just mixed it with the Pulsewave Pink so that I would get something that was slightly more intense in its color. And I still wanted these two colors to work together as a whole, so that's why I didn't just go with the orange on its own, even though I was quite tempted, because it does look just slightly more it's just a slightly more aggressive color if it's not mixed with anything. For the final highlight for the pink, I used Cyber Pink, which is just a lighter version of the Pulsewave Pink. I would often at this stage in the painting process mix in some pink pigments, because that is even more color intensive than these colors on their own. But I thought that that would be simply, well, too much of a good thing, really, because the rest of the model is so, well, desaturated for my usual style of painting anyway, and that would actually look out of place. So that's why I went with the colors from Huge Miniatures on their own without mixing in any pigments or anything. While I was really happy with the way the pink parts of the wings looked, I wasn't quite happy with the orange parts, so I decided that the last highlight would be a mixture of Cyber Pink, Laser Orange and Flash Gits Yellow. The reason I added the Flash Gits Yellow was both because it makes the paint a little bit brighter, but also because it adds some warmth to the color. And the rest of the model is quite cool and cold with the pinks and the blues and the greens. So adding a little bit of warmth adds some visual interest and some contrast to the rest of the model, which I thought worked really well. I had highlighted up the gooey parts of the model with just some flesh colors and stuff, and then I decided to add some gloss varnish to make sure that it would be very easy to see that this is actually, you know, blood and intestines and stuff. So I think, I mean, that just makes sense to me, and I think it's fun. But also because the rest of the paints are quite matte, and so adding some parts of the models that are glossy will again be more visually interesting because it adds another type of contrast. For the final highlight on the blue skin, I mixed some ochre blue and some blaster blue to get some really nice, almost just light gray coloring for especially just the ridges and the spikes, to make sure that they really stand out and pop and make the model a little bit more, again, interesting to look at, but also I think a bit more readable. And then for the green highlight, I used the same two colors and then mixed in some gamma green as well to get the same sort of effect for the green parts of the model. You'll notice that I painted the wings in between the final highlights for the skin, and that was because I wanted to make sure that I thought the skin of the dragon and the wings actually would fit together. So I usually do that when I'm painting. I go back and forth between different parts of the model to make sure that I think they work well together as a finished whole when I'm done. And here you can see the finished zombie dragon, or Revenant Draconith. Overall, this was a really fun project. It was also a little bit challenging because I usually just throw neon colors at every available surface often when I'm painting, and I decided not to do that here. So yeah, it was actually quite challenging but also fun, and I think it worked out fairly well in the end. And I just have to say, I can't wait to let my necromancer hopefully one day raise a zombie dragon. That's gonna be awesome. And then, of course, as I said, I used a lot of neon colors with this, even if I mixed them with other colors to make sure it was a little bit more desaturated. But that does mean that this model shines under a UV light like this. So I have a zombie dragon that is definitely ready for a rave party or something. This has absolutely no practical value whatsoever, of course, but I think it's fun, and it is something that I save for when I'm completely done with a model. I don't use the UV light before it's completely done. It's sort of like a reward to myself for finishing a project, I guess. So anyways, I look forward to hearing what you guys think of this zombie dragon, if you think it's fun, or if you think it's a complete misunderstanding of what a zombie dragon should look like. I mean, please do be kind though in the comments, that would be appreciated. Also, lastly, before you leave, I would of course like to take the opportunity to thank the people who support me on Patreon. You guys are the best, and you have been very patient with my lack of videos over the last 6 months or something like that. So I can't thank you guys enough for that. I really appreciate it. So anyways, thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Jordan Hollands, Queen's Wolf, Double J's Terrain, Steve Eberly, Andrew Correa, Anthony Polcastro, Gwenna L, Jen Kroger, Bosworth the Rogue, Mando Project, S. Beer, Economicus, Tauntaun, Cyberfossil, Terrainery, Joshua and Anya Paveltic, Charlie Robertson, and VT Knight 007. You guys rock. Thank you so much. If you have any sort of question or comment or a suggestion for a future video, you are more than welcome to leave that in the comment section below. I read every single comment, but I cannot honestly promise you that I will get back to you with an answer, and that's not because I don't want to, but because I sometimes struggle with stuff related to mental health issues, autism, ADHD and stuff. And sometimes that just gets in the way of my good intentions. So I hope you're understanding. I really do appreciate that you take the time and effort to write to me. So anyways, again, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!